Hello there, this video is just a bit of an introduction to what mindfulness actually is, and it's a bit of a sort of precursor to diving into the 8-week mindfulness course. It gives you a bit of information about how the 8-week mindfulness course works. Okay, so what is mindfulness then? So mindfulness is a practical way of changing your life for the better, and the underlying principle of mindfulness is very simple, but it can be quite profound. The underlying principle of mindfulness is awareness and being aware of the present moment. So being aware of our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviours, our reactions as they happen moment by moment. And just by being aware of those, then that gives us the freedom to be able to change, or gives us choice in what we do with those. So awareness is transformative. We've got to be aware of what's going on for us before we can change anything. Bringing more awareness to our experience means that we know what's going on for us. It develops our self-awareness, so we know exactly what's going on. And as I said, what it does then is when we have that awareness, it gives us the potential to start acting in ways that bring us more happiness, freedom and kindness into our lives, and gives us greater health and well-being. Now, we all have mindful awareness to some degree, and children are naturally mindful. So when we're born, we are naturally mindful. It's almost like we lose the ability to be mindful as we grow older, and other sort of external distractions take our attention away. So mindfulness training is simply a systematic way of developing that awareness further. So think of it as strengthening your mindfulness muscle. Think of it as mindful training your mindfulness muscle. It's not just a way of solving problems or relieving pain and suffering. That often is the reason why people come to mindfulness. Often they might go to the GP with physical health problems, or another health professional with anxiety, stress, depression, and be recommended go and do mindfulness. But it isn't just a way to solve problems or to relieve our pain and suffering. It's also a way of enhancing and enriching an already happy life. So even if you're already happy, we can always be even happier, can't we? And mindfulness is a way of bringing even more joy to our lives. So the Mindfulness for Stress course then, there are two main components of the Mindfulness for Stress course, and they are ideas and practices. So each week you'll be introduced to a particular idea and a practice that goes along with that idea. So the ideas, think of those as theories and concepts behind mindfulness, and they're the reasons for practicing mindfulness, and they're the skills that you can develop and apply to your everyday life. And then there are practices. So stop saying practice makes perfect. If you went to the gym and wanted to strengthen, a physical muscle in your body, you wouldn't just do something once, would you? You'd need to keep going back and doing it again and again and again. So you'd need to practice it, and it's exactly the same as strengthening your mindfulness muscle. So the practices are ways in which you experience, get a feel for, and then practice the ideas. And sometimes it might be a concept that you might only need to do once, and that's called an inquiry. But other times it's something that you'll need to practice over time so that you strengthen that mindfulness muscle. So let's have a bit more look at what practices are. And there are broadly two types of practices. And the first practice is something that requires you to step out of your daily routine and spend some time focusing solely on practicing whatever theory that you've read, without having to think or do anything else, without having to think about or do anything else. And those practices are called meditations. And in the beginning in a mindfulness course, we'd just be doing those for sometimes just for a couple of minutes and up to about 10 minutes, and then developing that. And it's about, in the mindfulness course, and it is exactly the same as if you were going to the gym. If you think, I'll do it when I've got time, you'll never do it. It is something that you do have to sort of factor some time in to do those things. But if our practice was restricted to only meditation, we'd only be mindful for a short period every day. And what we're aiming for is to be mindful more or less all of the time, or as much as the time as we possibly can. And at the end of each session, what I'll be giving you is some simple things to do while going about your day-to-day life. And they are called mindfulness in action. And if you keep practicing both of those, by the time you get to the end of the course, you'll be naturally mindful for a lot of the time. So essentially, the meditations are practices and ways that you practice and bring into your lives the theories and the ideas and the concepts that you're going to be taught in each week. So the way the practice works, there's lots of talk about the neuroscience behind mindfulness and the ways that it changes the brain. And there's been a lot of research out there. Now, I'm no neuroscientist, so this is just a brief kind of description. Neuroscience research has actually shown that the brain changes with experience. So the more we do something, it brings about changes in the neural pathways. So if you were learning to dance, for example, when you learn a new dance step, the first time you do it, a new neural pathway is created. And what that does is that sends instructions to your body on how to perform that step. But of course, just doing it once isn't going to make you a good dancer. But doing the step over and over again strengthens that neural pathway, changing your brain, and that makes the step easier to perform and makes you better at it. And it doesn't just happen for physical actions. Our brain actually changes whenever we think, imagine, or feel something repeatedly. So as you do the practices that are talked about in this course and in the workbook that comes along with the course, you're actually changing your brain. You're developing and strengthening new neural pathways. And that, of course, means changing your mind and then changing your experiences. So even if you don't enjoy doing some of the practices, you will still, because we don't always, often people will come to meditation because they want to experience relaxation. That's not the actual intention behind meditation practices. That is just a byproduct because it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. The intention behind all of these meditation practices in the mindfulness course is to develop your mindfulness muscle, to strengthen the neural pathways in your brain. So there's a lot of research out there around mindfulness, and studies have shown that mindfulness reduces stress, decreases anxiety, increases emotional resilience, and it actually strengthens your immune system. And it does things like reduces inflation, and there's lots of physical benefits to mindfulness which you can read about. And it also affects your mood and lifts your mood. So mindfulness can help you to live well with anxiety and depression, as well as many health conditions like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, high blood pressure, things like ME, chronic pain, arthritis, back pain, and lots more. It's even been shown to have a positive impact in people who are managing things like cancer, Parkinson's disease. And you can go on the Breathworks website if you wanted to have a look at some of the research. All of Breathworks courses are evidence-based, and there's new research that is continually emerging. And there is another course that Breathworks are very well known for, and that's the Mindfulness for Health course. And that course is actually being recommended by the NHS and chronic pain clinics right throughout the country as a way of living well with health conditions. But alongside that, there are also many organisations across the country that are bringing mindfulness for stress into the workplace, as well as mindfulness and compassionate leadership courses. People like Google and Apple are bringing mindfulness into staff, the NHS. I've worked with places like the local authority, lots of charities and things. So lots and lots of organisations are now bringing mindfulness for stress into the workplace, and the workplace is being seen as a place that can have a real benefit by learning these skills, not just in our personal lives. So mindfulness as well helps us to develop our self-awareness and being aware of our thoughts and our feelings and physical reactions and our behaviours, as well as our biases and judgments as they happen moment by moment. Because we all have biases, we all have judgments, and it's not the fact that we have those biases and judgments, it's what we do with them. So being aware of them as they happen moment by moment gives us choice. So when we're aware of what's going on under the surface for us, we are much better able to choose how we respond to them rather than just automatically reacting. So for example, if somebody sort of like really gets on your nerves and your automatic reaction to them if they say something to you is to sort of snap and be irritable to them, just by being aware, that's our automatic reaction. But by being aware of when we're starting to get annoyed at somebody, being aware of that physical reaction, we can then do something about it. And we might think that in that moment, that the way that we usually react is the best way anyway, in the right way. Or we might think, hang on, there's a better way of dealing with this. It's going to give me a better outcome. But it's a conscious choice. So a huge benefit of mindfulness is giving us the freedom to be able to choose. So mindfulness and compassion come hand in hand, and quite often developing our self-awareness, what that does for us is we actually notice how hard we are on ourselves, how our internal dialogue is often very self-critical, although we might be people-pleasing, those sorts of things. And the first half of the Mindfulness for Stress course helps us to develop our awareness, while the second half of the course helps us to develop self-compassion and kindness to ourselves. Now, usually we are automatically kind to other people, but the person that we are least kind to often tends to be ourselves. And it's actually self-compassion that brings about the biggest changes in our lives, and not self-criticism. So when we're beating ourselves up, that's not what brings about the changes in our lives. It's when we're actually learning to be kinder to ourselves. That's when we tend to bring changes about. So when we are self-compassionate as well, that also gives us the capacity to continue to be kind to other people. So often people think that being self-compassionate is selfish, and actually it's not. When we develop in self-compassion and when we're kinder to ourselves, we feel better. So that actually helps us to continue or be kinder to other people. And if you are still in any doubt as to whether it's worth learning the skills of mindfulness or how mindfulness can help us, then this is what developing the skills of mindfulness can actually help you to do. So if you look at this is called the Flourishing Spiral, and an 8-week mindfulness course. Now, mindfulness is something that you don't just learn in 8 weeks and then you are automatically able to be at the top of the Flourishing Spiral. The 8-week mindfulness course, everything that you learn throughout the course, is the foundations in you being able to bring all of this to your life. So you'll be able to go from just being okay, because we don't just want to be just okay, do we? So not only does mindfulness take you, if you are dealing with a physical health condition, anxiety, depression, and you're feeling really low, not only does it bring you up to feeling okay, but then, we don't want to just be okay. We want to be the best that we can be, can't we? So the skills of mindfulness can take you from being okay to actually take you up to the top of the Flourishing Spiral, where if you're at the top of the Flourishing Spiral, the thinking behind this is that you are achieving your potential, or you are being the best that you can be. So you'll start to become more aware. We talked about developing our awareness. You'll be less reactive and more responsive to what's going on in your lives. So you'll become, as you're developing compassion, less judgmental. You will spend more time in the being mode rather than being caught up constantly in the doing mode and wearing yourself out. So that will bring less stress to your lives. We'll have less of a negativity bias, because we've all got an automatic negativity bias, and we talk about that in the course. And all of that will lead to you becoming more emotionally resilient and developing resilience. You will have better communication skills, which leads to better relationships. You'll be a lot kinder, not just to other people, but more importantly to yourself. And then if you've got all of those skills, then you will have wisdom and you'll be a lot wiser. And if you think, it doesn't mean an academic wisdom, it means wisdom in your life. So if you were aware of all of those things and you've developed all of those skills in your life, then you have the wisdom to deal with any situation that crops up, and to be able to release your potential and release creativity and positive intention and all of those sorts of things. So that's what we are aiming for. We talk about this in the last week of the course. If you continue to practice mindfulness, because this isn't just about practicing mindfulness and bringing this to your life over these 8 weeks, this is about the foundations, bringing the foundations into your life, helping you to develop these skills so that you go on then into the rest of your lives and being able to flourish. And we don't just do that by learning this over 8 weeks. It's continuing to keep it going. We will be talking about that at the end of the 8 weeks. So I hope all of that makes sense. But if you've got any questions at all, then you've got my email address, and please just drop me an email and reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions before we go any further.